After all this time hanging out together, brother, I figured it out. You say I'm running a little late. That's 2 minutes.
Good morning.
Good morning. Before we get into my first topic, and it has to do with advice as a mentor and your time as a mentee. What's the latest with the Beyond Goals? What's going on these days? I know that the soccer season, as we're talking about, is in its championships here in the state of Georgia, but that does not mean that you guys stop doing what you're doing. Where are things right now, and what are you guys up to?
Yeah, same old, same old. Still trying to continuously grow. Is Campbell High School for 7A boys in the final?
Campbell is 7A boys in the final. They are playing.
We'll take credit for that.
There you go. Yeah, Campbell knocked off Archer in the semifinal. They're playing Kennesaw Mountain tonight at Duluth at 7:30 against Kennesaw Mountain. So that's your final at 7A.
Yeah, we'll take credit for Campbell winning the whole thing tonight.
There you go. That's absolutely awesome. And it's not just you guys don't just do it with you guys don't just give advice with high school teams during high school season. I mean, the relationships you have with Atlanta United Club, it's not just something that's stuck into a high school and in a school year calendar. You guys are all 24/7, 365.
All year round. All year round. Yep.
When it came to mentoring and the idea of giving advice, I want to take this in a couple of different stages in your life to where we are right now. And that's the reason I wanted to find out what's going on to start things off. When you were growing up, and this could be off the field growing up or on the field growing up, what was the best piece of advice that you got growing up as a young man? Not necessarily as a young athlete, but as a young man. It could apply to being an athlete, but the best advice you got growing up would have been what?
That's such a hard one.
If it's a multi-part answer, then that's fine too.
I feel like from parental guidance, for me, just to treat others the way that you want to be treated. Mm-hmm. And I think when I was doing the ICA, the intercultural awareness training, I got taught another one that was it's not supposed to be treat everyone the way you want to be treated anymore. It's now treat everyone the way that they want to be treated. So ultimately it comes down to just understanding what the word respect means. I think is a massive one for me. That's a huge one on even for me as an adult, and even for me working with kids, is just the first impression, the type of respect that they give to others is massive. Their listening skills, and you and I talked about this last time, the maturity part of it is a massive one. And you said something, or I'll say that before I move on to the next thing, I'd say from my mentor, I think just always letting me know to sit down with the oldest people at the table. Whenever I became a professional soccer player, sit down with the old guys. Don't sit down with people who are your same age, because they can teach you, give you words of wisdom, guidance, instruction, kind of how they got that far, things they screwed up in during their career that hopefully you wouldn't make the same mistake. Just learning from experience. And I say this 1,000 times. I don't like the flair players. That's just my personal opinion and to my liking. I like the players that are experienced and play with a lot of wisdom, and just you can tell that those players are going to play for a really long time based on the fact of how they play. And I think that translates to probably off the field as well, probably how they live off the field as well. Is we always say, like, how you are off the field is usually how you are on the field. So that's a big one for me. And you said something that stuck out to me, and I don't see it that way. You said when I give advice, mm-hmm. and I don't feel like I give advice. Okay. I feel like I plant seeds. I feel like I plant seeds in kids' brains, and it's totally up to them, right? Because I feel like when you give advice, you expect someone to hopefully follow. And for me, I think it's like planting that seed and letting them kind of be resilient and figure it out on their own. That's why I think bonds and relationships within what Mike and I do is extremely special, because you create that brotherhood on both ways, right? And I serve as a big brother for young men and women, right? So it's being a big brother and planting those seeds and helping guide them towards hopefully making their own decisions in the most mature way possible is what I do.
And at the same time, I would imagine that it's giving feedback in as much as it is planting seeds, because feedback to me comes across as a two-way street, where if you're planting a seed, you get feedback in return, and then you can take that feedback and then plant the next seed. And so it almost ends up being a staircase when you're trying to have conversation.
Yeah. And sometimes that feedback, and we've spoken about it before, sometimes that feedback is criticism, right? Sometimes that feedback is criticism and helping them understand how to receive criticism, or helping them understand that in the real world, right? It's whether they play soccer for a really long time, or whether they are in a corporate job, or in a entrepreneurship, or trade. It doesn't matter. There's always going to be room for growth. There's always going to be room for improvement, and sometimes that comes with that constructive criticism that you and I have spoken about before.
How long did it take you to get it when it came to receiving criticism, to where you didn't take it personally? Because I know a lot of times when we're younger, someone who, it could be a peer and they could be meaning well, or it could be one of those old guys that you talk about, they give criticism and you don't want to hear it because, for whatever reason, you're stubborn, and that your way is the right way, even though your level of maturity may not match the rest of the room. The stubbornness keeps you from getting that, from receiving the constructive criticism and applying it forward, and you just think that they're picking at you. How long did it take you and folks that you've interacted with to get that constructive criticism is just that, they're not picking at you?
Yeah, that's for me in particular.
Yeah.
Man, I think there are ways that I understood as a young kid. I think these kids are already being criticized, especially if you're in sport.
Yeah.
There's a lot of constructive criticism that you learn how to handle, right? And I always, and you and I have used this in the past as well, it all comes down to the H or H, right? Is that criticism helping you, or is it hurting you?
Yeah.
Is a massive one. And that goes for everything. Right? I speak with, motivationally speak with kids and helping them make the right decisions, or the actions that they're going to make. Are those actions or decisions going to help them or hurt them? That's such a good way to kind of look at things. So, great example of I use personally for kids is when I was 9, 10, 11, before I moved to Brazil, I had an English coach who dreaded the way that I played, hated the way that I played. I was too small. And I never used my right foot. I never cut inside. I always went to my left. If you're going to make it to the next level, you need to work on your right foot, right? Your right foot is just not good. You need to work on your right foot. You need to do this with your right foot. If you're going to play at the next level, you're going to play on this team, you need to make it. You need to work on your right foot. Mm-hmm. And I always tell kids, I played for almost 13 years. I represented every single age group in the national team, every single age group. I didn't miss one age group. That means I was in the top 18 kids all the way up until I was adult of the whole entire country. Mm-hmm. I played for the national team. I won major trophies. I got to play in the South American Champions League. I've been retired now for 3 years. And guess what? I still don't have a right foot. So it's, in a way, that criticism, it didn't push me to the edge of thinking, well, man, my right foot really sucks. I just thought to myself, I'm just going to make my left so much better than everybody else's right. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's how you take that criticism. And for me, it was almost a fuel to my fire to just keep working at something that I knew I was so much better at than everybody else, and kind of take that even further. And the cool thing is, you get to grow up, and maybe sometimes you re-encounter those people, and, you just get to kind of thank them. And it's one of the ultimately, I'm sure they're all so proud of you, but I mean, in that moment, that guy, and kids sometimes don't understand those things, right? They feel like sometimes that criticism of a coach really telling them that this isn't going to help their game Well, sometimes you got to moderate. And we talk about that a lot, that self-regulation. You got to moderate and you got to be able to change things that are in front of you to help you. And sometimes it can be a selfish decision that you make, but that coach in particular, where even if I would have stayed with that coach my whole entire youth career, probably would have not made it. Right. So you have to sometimes find change and find things that can ultimately help you. And that's I spoke with a girl yesterday, and just helping her understand. It took her a long time, and I just kept telling her over and over. And she has an issue of just self-acceptance.
Yeah.
And just helping her understand that no matter what, she is the most important person in every room that she is in. That was our whole entire session, of helping her understand that no matter what, she is still the most important person in the room. Right. And sometimes kids, they don't believe that finding that self-belief is really hard. And that's a massive one that we really focus on.
Because at the same time, you get all of these external things that are hammering at you. I mean, it could be someone in your family, could be someone who's a friend, could be someone who calls themselves a friend and they're really not. But you have all of these external factors, coaches, teammates, all these kinds of things that are just pounding on you, and you've still got to find a way to impress upon yourself and remind yourself that I can work through all of these things. I can be better, and I'm the best person. When I walk into the room, I'm the ish. That is how. But I would think that, especially today, with all of the social media and everything that's pounding you from all the different places, that might be one of the most difficult things to do, is to push through and understand that.
Yeah, it's that is probably, even as a dad,
Yeah,
that's the hardest thing to say to my own kids, is no matter what happens today, focus on yourself.
yeah.
Don't look at others. Don't point fingers. Don't worry about what the score is. Don't worry about how far you go in the tournament. Don't worry about, focus on yourself. No, Dad, you always tell me that. What do you mean focus on yourself? That doesn't mean anything, right? Every kid, I feel, views that the same way, right? No, there's all these things. I can't focus on myself. There's all these things. And so sometimes I think it's really hard for kids these days, because of all the external things that are happening around them. They can't focus on themselves. There are so many other things that are going around them that I think is just constantly plugging in information, or they see others doing something, or and man, I wish you could really stamp that into every kid, as selfish as that sounds.
Yeah.
But if they focus on themselves, don't worry about what anybody else is doing, don't worry about their path, don't worry about the road that they're on. Mike and I speak that a lot to, especially like Atlanta United parents, right? Sometimes it's not even the kids, sometimes it's more the parents.
Mm-hmm.
Because they see this kid has just signed a professional contract. They see this kid, well, my kid's better. I know my kid is better. And that, once again, that main thing right there, focus on yourself, right? I use this a lot, and this is a huge one. And I heard this story, and I don't know if you and I have spoken about it, but it's I love Chinese proverbs, and I always have things that pop up on my Instagram reels about just Chinese proverbs and Asian culture proverbs.
Right.
And it was about a bamboo tree. Have you heard about that one?
No, I've not.
Oh, the bamboo tree is a good one.
Okay.
Bamboo is a good one. So bamboo is used in Asian cultures for almost everything, right? It's such a sturdy and hard foundation object, right? A plant. They use it to build houses. They use it to build buildings, right? And you're talking about a tree that's tall and skinny. How tall do you, I'm going to do this one with you. How tall do you think a bamboo tree can be?
Oh, I've seen stalks be at least 20 feet tall.
So you gave like the average answer of what every kid gives me. Every kid usually gives me like 20 to 30 feet.
Okay.
A bamboo tree can grow up to 150 feet.
Man.
Right. And so we're talking about a bamboo tree that can grow up to 150 feet. And you're talking about an object that is almost unbreakable,
Mm-hmm.
right? It can bend.
Yeah.
It's hollow inside. I don't know how it can bend and withstand hurricanes and not break
Yeah.
because of how deep and rooted its foundation is.
Okay.
And so I always ask kids, it's like, well, my girlfriend has a piece of bamboo. She has a bamboo, little mini bamboo, and I always use it when I'm here. But I use like, sometimes I'll use a banana or a pen to, to represent the bamboo tree. And I always ask them, well, what's a sprout look like? And the sprout, that initial growth of that very first, right, bamboo plant is just popped out under the ground. Well, how long does it take for a bamboo tree to grow? To not to grow, but just to sprout. How long do you think it takes?
Oh, wow. See, you're asking me about horticulture. I'll say 6 months. I have no idea.
6 months. And most kids will say, well, it's just, I'm going to think it's like a flower. It's going to take, 2 weeks. Well, it takes 5 years.
Wow.
Right? 5 years just for that bamboo tree to sprout out under the ground. All right. Now, what must you do? And I tell kids to be the bamboo tree, to be the farmer at the same time. What must you do in order for that bamboo tree to sprout?
I mean, you have to have proper maintenance. You got to keep an eye on it, or does it do it on its own?
No, you have to water it. You
Okay.
have to put it in sunlight every single day. You have to nourish it. You have to take care of it. And I tell kids, just like yourself, you as a player, you must work on yourself. You must put in the effort on yourself every single day. Now, if you miss one day of not watering the bamboo tree within the 5 years, that root won't grow. It'll die.
Huh.
One day. All it takes is one day. And so after it does sprout, let's say you have the patience, and let's say you've put in all the effort and you've put in all this time and you've done all of this stuff, patient effort, 5 years, boom, bamboo tree sprouts. How long does it take to reach its full peak performance or its full peak height?
You tell me, like I said, you're going into a direction I have no idea here.
It takes only 9 weeks.
Okay.
Right? So it took you 5 years to grow that bamboo tree, to put in that time and put in that effort. And if you put in that effort and you are patient with it, it can just explode after, right? After it does sprout.
Okay.
And so I always tell kids is that sometimes you look over and that kid's bamboo tree, it's already sprouted, right? Sometimes you work really hard and you feel like you're working so hard and nothing's happening, right? And you get so frustrated. Well, imagine that farmer after he's been watering that bamboo tree for 2.5 years. Has he seen any results? And the answer is no. He hasn't seen the soil move.
Yeah.
Still got 2.5 more years.
Say, you're at the halfway point, brother. You just
right. And so I always tell kids, like, look, the most important thing is focusing on yourself, but you just got to continue to water your bamboo tree. And yeah, that's somebody just said in the comments, overnight success, right? It's the famous Messi quote is that I became an overnight success.
Mm-hmm.
Took me 17 years and change
Yep.
to become an overnight success. And sometimes kids don't realize that, right? And sometimes kids' parents don't realize that. They think that, well, if this happened to this, then, well, this has got to happen to my kid too. But it's just not, their bamboo tree is just not ready to sprout yet. So I love Chinese culture and Asian culture stories, and they always pop up on them. And I think because my iPhone hears me speak about it, and so I use a lot of them on kids because they really tell a tale, they tell a story, and it helps kids understand, especially the older kids, because I feel like sometimes there's a lot of kids that I work with that work so hard for something, and they feel like they're not there yet. I give them my personal career of making it professional and taking a few years just to see the field or just to kind of get my chance. And we all want everything to happen super fast, right? But that bamboo tree is a good story to use.
Yeah, there are two other individuals along those same lines that I will gravitate toward. Yes, hydration. That is important. Sun Tzu and The Art of War.
Okay.
That is a book I think that everyone should have on their shelves because it doesn't apply just to war. It applies to business. It applies to everyday life. It applies to how you can carry yourself. One of my favorite quotes in The Art of War by Sun Tzu is trust the local guides for they know the terrain.
I love that. That
does not just apply to combat. That applies to so many different things that is one that has stayed with me. And you mentioned bamboo, and there is another individual that we lost way too soon back in the 1970s. And here's one of his quotes that has to do with bamboo. Notice that the stiffest tree is most easily cracked, while the bamboo or willow survives by bending with the wind.
Yeah.
Bruce Lee.
Yeah. I like it.
And so when you mentioned bamboo, that worked in my brain. Where Bruce would mention, be water.
Yeah.
To have that kind of ability to go with the wind and go with the breeze and be sure that you can, make sure that you can navigate all these kinds of things.
Yeah.
I didn't realize we're gonna get this philosophical this morning. This is pretty.
I like it. And the thing about that is that there's so many lessons within some of the proverbs that I give, and I always tell them, well, what do you think a proverb means? And they're like, oh, from the Bible. I'm like, no, proverb means lessons and teachings. It is my favorite book in the Bible.
Yeah,
but it means teachings and lessons because you read them and it means something to you, right? So, and sometimes kids will think about the bamboo tree. I'll give them that story, and they'll be like, man, it's all about foundation. And I'm like, yeah, I love it, man. Like, well, your foundation, what you're building right now is ultimately going to set you up for the future. And that's why I love speaking to kids who are in that like 15 to 18 range, because who they are right then and there is most likely who they're going to be for the rest of their lives, right? They're really building that they're building that final, stacking those final stones of foundation, right? Final bricks of foundation, laying those final bricks of foundation to like be who they want to be. So it's all about what choices they make and kind of how they continue to grind and put in that work.
But at the same time, you can add to the foundation. You can add rooms. You can add floors. You can build horizontally and vertically to what's going on. I asked you about the best piece of advice that you got, from either family or when you were just growing up.
Yeah.
Ever since you hung up your cleats, what is the best piece of advice that you've been given either by a peer or an adult that's outside of the realm of sports or anything like that? What's the best piece of advice that you've gotten post-athletic career that has helped you forward with everything that you're doing now with Michael and Beyond Goals mentoring and those kinds of things? What's the best piece of advice you've gotten since you've retired?
Arnold Schwarzenegger and his Netflix series that he had.
I have something to tell you, Mr. Garza. You have to listen.
I think I may have used this before with you, but I remember watching that, and I mean, this is now it was probably 2 years post retirement.
Yeah.
But he said something, and he said, and excuse my language, but he said F depression.
Yeah.
Right. Said F depression. Said what we have to do to just always get away from our own thoughts and just sometimes dealing with crappy days is stay busy. Stay busy. As long as you stay busy and you occupy your mind doing something that will keep you busy, you'll be okay. And I love that, man, because my whole day I sleep probably sometimes need more sleep, but it's 6 to 8 hours, maybe 8 hours max.
Yeah.
And my whole entire day I'm doing something. There is not a moment in my day to where I feel like I'm always busy, and I feel like it keeps me going, because I think post career, if you do just sit around and you sit on your couch and you're like, holy crap, man, I've just dedicated so many years, and now what the heck am I going to do? Then that's when all those negative thoughts start creeping in, and you're just like, well, life is over, man. But I think if you just finish and you just jump right into something and you stay busy and you just push through it, try and occupy every single minute and hour of your day. I feel like it gives you, it pushes you along. Now, are those moments to kind of, like for me is going to Chattahoochee Coffee Company and getting a coffee and sitting for 20 to 30 minutes and just kind of reflecting and reviewing. Yeah, of course. But then right after that, I'm back doing something else.
Yeah, but you're doing deep thought there. You're analyzing what's going on. Time with yourself, I think, is just as crucial as time with others.
Most definitely. And that's why I think it's, once again, I love what he said, is just stay busy. And that's a huge one for me. I am not a person that can sit at home and procrastinate. I have to always be doing something, whether that's cleaning house, whether that's doing laundry, whether that's going to hop on a bike for 10 minutes, whether that's whatever it is, going work out for 15 minutes. I feel like that mind for me is always churning, always in gear.
You'll have to F the pressure, Mr. Garza. That is what you have to do. All right. One question from Bart Keeler before we go.
Yeah.
In light of what Gianni Infantino said, calling for an end to pay-to-play models in the U.S., how feasible do you think that is? And what are some initial steps the U.S. youth soccer structure can take to move toward or free more and make or have made more affordable youth soccer access?
That is absolutely a wonderful question. I'm going to say it is impossible.
Wow.
Right, to do. Not in my generation.
Yeah.
Not in our generation. People have figured it out, the business. People have figured out the business, and in the United States, it's an opportunistic world. It's an opportunistic country, and they've figured it out. And I don't know if there's any right or left or backwards turn that you can make to make it easier and more accessible.
Yeah,
I wish we really could, but not in my generation. And I wish I could be an advocate for that, but I just it's out of my hands. I think it's out of all of our hands. That's the pathway. That's the route that I think creates opportunity, and unfortunately that's how it goes. While as well, I will say there are, within that world, I have met some absolute fantastic people that do provide a lot of opportunity for underprivileged and underserved communities, to help them grow and help them become better human beings, and sometimes have opportunities to take soccer as far as they can. But in regard to completely changing the landscape of youth soccer, it is $1 billion. It is $1 billion element, right? There's so much money within youth soccer, from travel to just gear, right? I think both of my kids' gear was over $1,000. Just my kids' gear this year. My 6-year-old, his gear was like $550, man, for one season. Like, he's 6 years old, right? I mean, he plays 3 years up, but I mean, he's 6 years old, right? So it's like, dude, what are we doing here, man? Sometimes it kills me inside, because I was sponsored by Nike for 13 years. And it's like, man, I'm spending $550 on a jersey that I know cost them $5 to make.
Slight decimal point, exactly.
Yeah. So, but I mean, that's the club environment that you have. I don't. There's no answer to that. It's such a hard one to answer, because it's out of our hands.
Because if you think of the club environment as a cruise ship out on the water, you cannot turn that cruise ship around on a dime. It cannot do a 3-point turn. You cannot hit reverse. It's got to take a long training circle to get back to where you were when you started. Get back to your Friday, get back to your weekend. I know at some point I want to talk ICA in depth and the lessons that you're learning there.
Yeah.
But no, enjoy your weekend, my friend. And thanks as always for coming on and sharing everything that's going on there with Beyond Goals Mentoring.
Who do we have this weekend?
You've got this weekend here. It is DC United and Christian Benteke and his rather large presence.
Okay. How's DC doing?
DC and Atlanta, they're hanging around each other in the Eastern Conference right now, but 7 teams in the East have not won on the road this season at all yet.
Yeah, I know. We got my kid always looks at best soccer app. If everybody who's watching is FOTMOB, best soccer app, FootMob. Mm-hmm. My kid always looks at that, looks at team forms, and every time he sees Atlanta, he's like, "Man, we got to be better, Dad." I'm like, I know, we got to be better. So hopefully this weekend can be a turnaround.
You got it, brother. Thanks as always.